Okay. Coffee maker's going. If you hear that noise, making hot chocolate. Okay, once again, we're in the ESV Bible, which is just the English Standard Version, nothing big there. This is the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 7. Paul speaking. I've said this before, but if you ever get a chance, read Peter or John or James, then go back and read anything Paul wrote, and it's the longest sentences, and just he stacks things. I find that interesting, but you kind of sometimes you can lose the if you go back through and say, okay, I'm going to read that chapter again, and just pick up the key points. It makes more sense that way. Not a criticism, it's just different the way it's written. Chapter 7. For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him. Old Testament. And to him, Abraham appointed a 10th part of everything. Paid a tithe. Or a tax, you could think of it as a tax. He is first, by translation of his name, king of the righteousness. And then he is also king of Salem. That is, king of peace. He is without father or mother or genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but resembling the Son of God, he continues as a priest forever. Okay. Let me back up just a little bit of the previous chapter, because I just read that and it makes no sense. Who are they talking about? They're talking about Jesus. But let's just make sure. For when God made a promise to Abraham, since he had no one greater by whom to swear, he swore by himself, saying, "Surely I will bless you and multiply you," God said to him. And thus Abraham, having patiently waited, obtained the promise. For people swear by something greater than themselves, and in all their disputes an oath is final for confirmation. So when God desired to show more convincingly to the heirs of the promise the unchangeable character of his purpose, he guaranteed it with an oath, so that by two unchangeable things in which it is impossible for God to lie, we who have fled for refuge might have strong encouragement to hold fast to the hope set before us. We have this as a sure and steadfast anchor of the soul, a hope that... Come on now. A hope that enters into the inner place behind the curtain, where Jesus has gone as a forerunner on our behalf, having become a high priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. Okay, now this makes sense. For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him. And to him, Abraham appointed a 10th part of everything. All the booty, all the stuff, the treasure they got from the slaughter of the kings, he gives a 10th to Melchizedek. Appointed a 10th part of everything. He is first, by translation of his name, king of righteousness. And then he is also king of Salem. Talking about Melchizedek. That is, he is also king of Salem. That is, king of peace. Must be a reference to his name. He is without father or mother or genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but resembling the Son of God, he continues as priest forever. See how great this man was, to whom Abraham the patriarch gave a 10th of the spoils. And those descendants of Levi who receive the priestly office have a commandment in the law to make tithes from the people, that is, from their brothers, though these also are descended from Abraham. But this man who does not have his descent from them received tithes from Abraham, and blessed him who had the promises. Blessed him who had the promises, meaning blessed Abraham. It is beyond dispute that the inferior is blessed by the superior. from Abraham and blessed him who had the promises. It is beyond dispute that the inferior, which I think would be Abraham, is blessed by the superior. Okay. In the one case, tithes are received by mortal men, but in the other case, by one of whom it is testified that he lives. One might even say that the Levi himself, who receives tithes, paid tithes through Abraham, for he was still in the loins of his ancestor when Melchizedek met him. Now, if perfection had been attainable through the Levitical priesthood, for under it the people received the law, what further need would there have been for another priest to arise after the order of Melchizedek, rather than one named after the order of Aaron? For when there is a change in the priesthood, there is necessarily a change in the law as well. For the one whom these things are spoken belonged to another tribe, from which no one has ever served at the altar. For it is evident that our Lord was descended from Judah, and in connection with that tribe, Moses said nothing about priests. This becomes even more evident when another priest arises in the likeness of Melchizedek, who has become a priest, not on the basis of legal requirement concerning bodily descent, but by the power of an indestructible life. For it is witnessed of him, in quotes, obviously probably from the Old Testament, you are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. No, that is actually a New Testament. For on the one hand, a former commandment is set aside because of its weakness and uselessness, for the law made nothing perfect. But on the other hand, a better hope is introduced through which we draw near to God. And it was not without an oath, for those who formerly became priests were made such without an oath. But this one was made a priest with an oath by the one who said to him, The Lord has sworn, and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever. This makes Jesus the guarantor of a better covenant. Okay. The former priests were many in number because they were prevented by death from continuing in office. But he holds his priesthood permanently because he continues forever. Speaking of Jesus. Consequently, he is able to save the uttermost, those who draw near to God through him, since he always lives to make intercession for them. That says it all. For it was indeed fitting that we should have such a high priest, holy, innocent, unstained, separated from sinners, and exalted above the heavens. He has no need, like those high priests, to offer sacrifices daily, first for his own sins and then for those of the people, since he did this once for all when he offered up himself. The Levites would have to make it sin, cleansing themselves in a sense before they'd go in. Jesus did that once with his blood. Let's see. For the law appoints men in their weakness as high priest, but the word of the oath, which came later than the law, appoints a son who has been made perfect forever. That's chapter 7. That's a word salad. I understood the part here we got into the covenant. But like I said, I think in the last video, this is one of my favorite sections of the Bible. And I have not been reading. And that's how weird this gets. I'm reading Hebrews now. Here we're in chapter 7. It's like I've never read this before. I've read this over a dozen times. Maybe 24 times. Okay? It's been a while. So I'm getting nothing out of it. Very little. So that tells me I need to continue reading. But also tells me that there's I don't want to see skill. But you lose your at least for me, you lose your eyes for this thing. That's why we have to keep at this all the time. Prayer, meditate on it, but we need to be reading. That's why I'm doing this. I said that before. Tomorrow we'll pick up chapter 8. Love you, God bless.